A very good afternoon to you from the studios of Atlantic Television Network in Port Harcourt. This is Atn International News for today. To begin, let's take a look at the headlines. Russians, Belarusian detained in Chad returns to Moscow. Tanzania building collapse kills 13 people. Nigeria, India deepen ties. In maritime security, Biden permits Ukraine to use arms to strike Russia. California confirms first Class 1 Mpox case. 1,500 killed in protests that ousted Hasina. Ukraine faces power cuts after Russian airstrikes. Remember, we are open for advert placements, news and events coverage, personality, society and political interviews, products, service promotion and commercials. You can connect with us on all our ATN socials, Facebook and YouTube at Atlantic Television Network. Instagram, TikTok, Atlantic TV Network 1. Twitter, Atlantic TV Net. Watch us live on our website, www.atlanticnetwork.tv. And now we bring you the details. And now the details, we delve into Africa. Senegal headed to the polls on Sunday to vote in the legislative election that the president hopes will give his party the clear majority it needs to implement an ambitious agenda for reforms. The heated campaign period has revived concerns about unrest as political rivals clashed, sometimes violently. The West African nation saw some of the worst political violence in recent history ahead of the presidential election in March. Voting in his hometown on the chance to vote for candidates for the 165-seat assembly, choosing between 41 registered parties or other entities. At stake is Faye's mandate to make good on promises to crack down on corruption and improve livelihoods that helped sweep him to power in April following a landslide election victory. Top priorities for Senegalese voters are jobs and the economy, as inflation has squeezed livelihoods and the nation's growing youth population struggles to find employment. Many are impatient for change. Faye says his commitment to help has been stymied by the opposition-led assembly. which he dissolved in September to pave the way for Sunday's vote. Group of 4 Russian and Belarusian nationals detained in the Central African state of Chad for more than a month flew back to Moscow on Saturday, Russian media reported. State described by Western journalists and institutions, including the European Union, as an official link to the late head of Russia's Wagner Group, a private army. 3 Russians and a citizen of Belarus who were detained and held in Chad have been freed and arrived in Moscow this evening. RIA quoted colleagues of Shugalay as saying, "The Moscow Daily Commerçant says Russian cultural interest abroad." Russian media reported that Shugalay and a second man identified as Samar Seifan were detained at the airport in the Chad capital, N'Djamena, in September, with no reason given. RIA said the Chadian ambassador to Moscow, Adam Bechar, subsequent institution on Saturday, a major step towards establishing democratic rule after a coup ousted the Bongo dynasty last year. But some observers fear that the ruling junta may use the process to remain in power. The proposed new constitution introduces 2-term limits on the presidency, each lasting 7 years, removes the position of prime minister, and recognizes French as Gabon's working language. General Brice Oligui Nguema, the interim president who seized power in a coup last year, has said that the vote reflects the government's commitment towards the transition and urged voters to participate. On Saturday, he praised the transparency of the process. Posters in Libreville have been plastered in the capital in the run-up, with the majority urging voters to pass the proposed legislation. On Saturday, voting stations were quiet in the morning, but activity picked up as the day wore. More than 80 people have been rescued, the country's president said on Sunday. The 4-story building in Eastern Dar es Salaam's Kariakou market came down on Saturday around 9 a.m. Minister Narendra Modi. Modi is the first Indian premier to visit Nigeria in 17 years, after an invitation by President Bola Tinubu, who is seeking investments from some of the world's biggest economies. Modi arrived in the capital Abuja on Saturday night and met Tinubu at the presidential villa on Sunday, where the 2 leaders made weapons to strike deep into Russia. 2 U.S. officials and a source familiar with the decision said on Sunday, in a significant reversal of Washington's policy in the Ukraine-Russia conflict. Ukraine plans to conduct its first long-range attacks in the coming days, the sources said, without revealing details due to operational security concerns. The move comes 2 months before President-elect Donald Trump takes office on January 20 and follows months of pleas by Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky to allow Ukraine's military to use U.S. weapons to hit Russian military targets far from its border. The change comes largely in response to Russia's deployments on Wednesday, hours after Trump unveiled his choice of the lawmaker and 2 days before the House Ethics Committee was expected to release its report, which also looked into allegations of illegal drug use. A majority of at least 52 of the 100 seats to get the post. A handful have expressed skepticism as the choice. Republican House Speaker Mike Johnson on Friday said the Ethics Committee should not release its report. He stood by that on Sunday. President and Human Services. Trump intelligence chief Pete Tulsi Gabbard and country singer Jelly Roll were also in his entourage. Case of Clade 1 Mpox has been in California. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention said on Saturday, marking the first case of the strain in the United States. The CDC said the case was diagnosed in a person who recently traveled from Eastern Africa. The person was treated shortly after returning to the U.S. at a local medical facility and released. Then the person has isolated at home, is not on treatment specific for Mpox, and symptoms are improving, the CDC said. Slow-moving tropical depression Sara unleashed major rainfall over Honduras this weekend, causing at least one death, while forcing thousands to flee their homes and destroying bridges and a highway due to flooding, officials said on Sunday. Airports in the capital, Tegucigalpa, and industrial hub San Pedro Sula were shuttered, according to civil aviation officials. Sara turned to the northwest, where it made landfall on neighboring valleys on Sunday, home to ancient ruins, beach resorts, and coral reefs, major flooding and swollen rivers. The center, despite disputed results. Maduro took off including at least 50 young adults from Tocoron prison, Romero said. Joe Biden became the first sitting U.S. president to visit the Amazon rainforest on Sunday, flagging the dangers of global warming after often dismissed by President-elect Donald Trump, who has vowed to scrap measures to fight climate change. Biden flew from Lima, Peru to Manaus, Brazil, then led afterward to Rio de Janeiro for a summit of the group of 20 major economies that will address issues including poverty, global governance, and climate change. While in the Amazon, Biden toured aboard his Marine One, saving as deforestation has changed the weather patterns that sustain in Manaus, where he met with indigenous leaders who want to protect the rainforest. The world's forest trees breathe carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere, and yet each minute the world is chopping down the equivalent of 10 soccer fields worth of forests, he told reporters. Scientists say conservation of the Amazon is vital to curbing climate change because of the vast amount of climate warming carbon dioxide its trees absorbed. You're watching the international news in Atlantic Television Network. Still ahead, one protest that ousted Hasina. We'll be back after this break to stay with us. Thanks for staying with us. You're watching the broadcast of the International News on Atlantic Television Network. Remember, we are open for adverts, placements, news and events coverage, personality, society and political interviews, products, service promotion and commercials. You can connect with us on all our Atn socials, Facebook and YouTube at Atlantic Television Network, Instagram and TikTok at Atlantic TV Network 1, Twitter, X, formerly Twitter, Atlantic TV Net, which is live on our website, www.atlanticnetwork.tv. And now to the rest of our stories. Brazil's First Lady, Janja Lula da Silva, saw at billionaire Elon Musk during a G20 social event on Saturday, at which she spoke about the need to regulate social media to rein in misinformation. A ship's horn sounded as she spoke and she joked, "I think it's Elon Musk," before adding, "I'm not afraid of youth." F you, Elon Musk. Musk, owner of social network X, reacted to a video of her remarks by posting a laughing out loud emoji graphic. In another post, he added, "They are going to lose the next election," in a reference to President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva. The president's wife spoke at an event ahead of the Rio de Janeiro summit of the G20 group of largest nations set for Monday and Tuesday. Musk's social messaging network was suspended in Brazil for a month this year for failing to name a legal representatives in the country and ignoring court orders to block accounts accused of spreading fake news and hate messages. Former student went on a stabbing rampage at a vocational college in eastern China, killing 8 people and injuring 17, police said on Sunday, prompting further soul-searching just days after the deadliest attack in the country in a decade. Saturday's knife attack took place at the Wuxi Vocational College of Arts and Technology in Jiaxing, part of Wuxi City in the eastern province of Jiangsu. The suspect, a 21-year-old man, was arrested at the scene and confessed, police said. Also on Saturday, authorities in the southern Chinese city of Zhuhai said they had charged a 62-year-old man who they said rammed his car into a crowd outside a sports stadium, killing 35 people and injuring 43 on Monday night. In both cases, the suspects lashed out with fatal violence against unrelated bystanders after suffering an economic loss, according to the sparse details released by police. The killings touch off a rare and heavily sensitive to return standoff in the Imphal, the state capital. The situation is relatively calm today but unpredictable, a senior state police official official told newsmen, adding that the situation was being closely monitored. Since May 2023, intercommunal clashes between the Meitei and Kuki communities have resulted in at least 250 deaths and displaced 60,000 people in the region. As a result, Manipur has become divided into two ethnic enclaves, the Meitei-controlled valley and the Kuki, separated by a stretch of no man's land monitored by federal forces. Tensions flared last week when a 31-year-old woman from the Kuki tribal community was burned alive. Kuki groups have blamed Meitei militants for the act, citing a failure by the state chief minister Biren Singh to resolve the crisis. The National People's Party, an ally of the ruling BJP, with 7 lawmakers in the 60-member state assembly, announced on Sunday its withdrawal of support from the state government. The 23 arrests followed Saturday's violence, which involved what a police statement said was the ransacking and arson of the houses of several state lawmakers and ministers. India has successfully tested a domestically developed long-range hypersonic missile, it said on Sunday, attaining a key milestone in military development that puts it in a small group of nations possessing the advanced technology. The global push for hypersonic weapons figures in the efforts of some countries. Missile developed by the state-run Defense Research and Development Organization and industry partners is designed to carry payloads for ranges exceeding 1,500 kilometers for the armed forces, the government said in a statement. The flight's data confirmed the successful terminal maneuvers and impacts with high degree of accuracy. It added, the test firing took place from the Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam Island off the eastern coast of Odisha state on Saturday, it said. Defense Minister Rajnath Singh called the test a historic achievement in a post on X, adding that it placed India. At least 407 people have died from related complications in 2024, with 78,595 patients admitted to hospital nationwide. The latest official figures showed. By mid-November, 4,173 patients were being treated, with 1,835 of them in Dhaka, the capital, and 2,338 elsewhere. We're witnessing monsoon-like rainfall even in October, which is unusual, said Kabirul Bashar, a zoology professor at Jahangirnagar University. Shifting weather patterns caused by climate change provided optimal conditions for the Aedes aegypti mosquito, the primary carrier of the disease. He argued. These changes in the season are fostering ideal conditions for the mosquitoes to breed. Dense populations in cities exacerbate the spread of the disease, usually more common in the monsoon season from June to September, though it has spilled beyond that window this year. A rise in temperatures and longer monsoons, both linked to climate change, have caused a spike in mosquito breeding, driving the rapid spread of the virus. Bashar called for year-round vector surveillance in Bangladesh to monitor and rein in the disease. About 1,000 economist and Nobel Peace Laureate, who is due to organize elections, is higher than the previous official count of about 1,000 deaths in the students-led demonstrations, which drew a ferocious crackdown. The protests, which began in July as a students-led movement against public sector job quarters, escalated into some of the deadliest unrest since Bangladeshi independence in 1971, forcing Hasina to flee to India. Every day, new names are being added to the list of martyrs, Yunus said in an address to the nation, marking 100 days of the interim government, pledging to prosecute those responsible for the violence. Yunus' government has vowed to ensure justice for victims of what he referred to as the autocratic regime's wrath. Yunus said a commission investigating forced disappearances had found information on 1,600 cases as of October, but that the total could potentially exceed 3,500. And he reiterated his government's commitment to demanding Hasina's extradition from India. Australia Prime Minister Anthony Albanese said his relationship with U.S. President-elect Donald Trump has had a very good beginning, elaborating on a phone call between the pair after the Republicans' U.S. election win. Albanese this week said he told Trump on a call that the United States has a trade surplus with Australia and it was in Washington's interest to trade fairly with its ally. Under the first Trump presidency, Australia won an exemption from U.S. tariffs for its aluminium and steel exports. In remarks broadcast on Sky News on Sunday, Albanese described the call as a very good beginning to their relationship. It was a positive phone call that we had. We spoke for 10 minutes. It was one of the first phone calls that he made, the leader of Australia's centre-left Labour government said, according to a transcript. Albanese's call with Trump also covered security ties, including the AUKUS deal, which will see Australia buy U.S. nuclear submarines next decade, and develop